preview, but if he can find an opening for it, if he has the reliable ways to shut down Trick Room, maybe scaring it off with something like the Amoonguss, he'll be in a really good position to capitalize on such an offensive Pokemon.
And here we go now. Both players are getting ready to get underway. Give it up for both of these players right now. They are here in the finals, just one win away from becoming a world champion. Looks like both players now are getting ready to send out their Pokemon. The leads that James decides to go with is going to be Tapu Koko and Gardevoir, a Pokemon that made somewhat of a splash in the 2015 World Championships. And it looks like over on Brum's side, no surprises here, Blaziken and Bisharp.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really solid lead, I think.
What is Gardevoir actually going to trace here?
Yeah, that's going to be exciting to see. Gardevoir's trace will grab Defiant. Doesn't look like he's going to have any opportunity to activate it, though, because there's no Intimidators available, and it wouldn't matter anyway. You don't really want to boost your physical attack as a Gardevoir. I really do like this lead from Brum, though, and even though Blaziken look like a little bit of an ask to bring in, it could be in a solid position right now to try and help out, especially applying pressure if the Gardevoir isn't able to stay around. We're not going to see any switches, though. Both players confident their leads are correct.
Blaziken is going to Mega Evolve here, going to get a good stat boost right there from Mega Evolving, as Gardevoir is going to follow suit as well. And Mega Evolve getting that really strong pixelate ability. I think it would have been dangerous if Gardevoir actually traced that speed boost, maybe get a couple of speed boosts to keep up with that Mega Blaziken. Bisharp protects here. James is reacting to that right here, excited about seeing that protect, and it looks like it's going to be Tapu Koko going for a Gigavolt Havoc right now. Going to try to lay down some massive damage in that electric terrain.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the terrain up. You're moving first because Blaziken hasn't managed to speed boost yet, so you're definitely the fastest Pokemon on the field. You've not been caught by any sucker punches to change that turn order, and Tapu Koko able to just deal huge damage to start off this match if it lands into the Blaziken. It does go protect, but Bisharp still taking a good amount of damage through that.
So much damage done as Blaziken using Flare Blitz right now. It is going to make contact with that Gardevoir. Gets good damage right there. Gardevoir hangs on with just a sliver of hit points, and Gardevoir uses trying to set up Trick Room, so that's bad for that Blaziken, but Bisharp does not mind being in Trick Room at all.
Yeah, Bisharp doesn't mind it at all, and a really smart play there from James to basically decide that Bisharp was what he was more worried about. Not only would it potentially be able to stop the Trick Room by attacking the Gardevoir, but it would also be able to capitalize on it really well as a Pokemon that's not so fast. The Blaziken right now, though, isn't in the most premium of positions. It's going to be speed boosting, and it's going to be in a bit of trouble. So much so, it's forced to switch out.
Blaziken switches out here, going to save that for the end game, possibly, to allow Blaziken to operate outside of Trick Room as Gardevoir protects itself. Amoonguss takes the field here, not a bad Pokemon to have, as Bisharp uses Sucker Punch, failing as Tapu Koko using Volt Switch. Gonna hit into that Bisharp in that electric train is enough to get the KO.
Yeah, James in a really solid position right now. The big threat to the Gardevoir is gone, and he gets to switch out the Tapu Koko, a Pokemon usually known for being a little bit faster, and bring in something that might be able to capitalize even better on this Trick Room that he's got in play.
Yeah, and Amoonguss is not bad, and you know, the electric train does prevent Amoonguss from being able to set down Spore on grounded Pokemon. Araquanid is going to take the field here from James to try to take advantage of Trick Room. Araquanid is not a speed Pokemon at all, and neither is Amoonguss, so what is Brum going to do to adjust to this Araquanid taking the field?
It's going to be a bit of an ask. I mean, Blaziken isn't going to fare too well against it, not going to be able to deal huge damage. And you've really got to hope that Brum's actually bought the Tapu Bulu. He's going to need that to be able to use Spore for the rest of the game. If he doesn't have that, this Amoonguss may not be able to do what it usually does to try and Trick Room. This Araquanid would like to point out, for those of you wondering why it looks a little bit bigger than usual, it is the Totem Araquanid, so it's a big boy now.
Yep, players opt for Totem Araquanid to prevent it from being Skydrop here. Amoonguss does have one option, and that is to Rage Powder away all of the attacks. You know, Blaziken doesn't have a great matchup against that Araquanid, but Amoonguss definitely has a very great defensive matchup with that Araquanid.
Yeah, I mean, it would really help against the Araquanid. The Gardevoirs, though, especially Mega Gardevoir, usually carrying a spread move in Hyper Voice, capitalizing on that pixelate and able to do good damage. That said, James wants to save that for a little bit later.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty big Intimidate from the Incineroar here. Going to lower that attack stat on Brum's Blaziken by one stage. Not going to matter on that Amoonguss, as Brum here going to switch out that Blaziken right away, trying to draw out attacks from James' side. And it looks like Tapu Bulu is going to hit the field here. Going to change that terrain, like you mentioned, Adam, and allow this Amoonguss to spore around.
Yeah, if he can get some spores down, it may be able to stall out the Trick Room. Then the Blaziken can come in when Trick Room's gone and tidy up. Araquanid is a little bit concerned about that, though, keeping itself safe with the Protect. So a great turn there for James. Now he's got access to the fake out, and he can start to try and get some damage down with this Araquanid.
Yeah, this Incineroar, though, can crash into that Tapu Bulu with a very powerful Flare Blitz. So, you know, not the safest spot for this Tapu Bulu because of how much pressure Incineroar has and also has access to that fake out.
Yeah, the Incineroar is able to do so much work, so that switch with the Gardevoir, they're really, really smart. And, you know, he didn't get punished for it. Even though the Tapu Bulu came in, the Spore heading towards the Araquanid there means James has a very, very kind of safe turn where he gets to make the decisions, and Brum kind of has to try and react perfectly to that.
Araquanid switches out. Tapu Koko is going to take the field here. That electric terrain is going to be so important to prevent Brum from being able to spore either Pokemon over on James' side here, as now the turn continues. Amoonguss going for the spore, unfortunately, right there, as Incineroar protects itself with that electric terrain. And here comes a knockoff on that Amoonguss. Going to go ahead and knock off that Wiki Barrier, allowing Amoonguss to not, or preventing it from being able to heal. And here comes a Wood Hammer in that Tapu Koko. Big damage, but Tapu Koko hangs on. Wow, what a smart switch of terrains right there.
Yeah, that change in terrain works in two ways. First of all, it stops the Spore, the electric terrain, not allowing Pokemon on the ground to go to sleep, and it reduces the damage from Wood Hammer, and that's not enough to knock out the Tapu Koko, so this works out so nicely for James. Of course, the Incineroar is still applying pressure to both Pokemon over on Brum's side of the field, and I think he's in a solid position now to maybe try and weave in a Flare Blitz there and just take a knockout, leaving just 2 Pokemon remaining.
Yeah, and of course, this is going to be the last turn of Trick Room here, so Brum has to keep that in mind. Maybe that allows Blaziken or this Tapu Bulu to hit the field later on. You know, there it is. Brum is actually going to try to preserve this Tapu Bulu. Blaziken's taking the field, but again, James very reactive right now.
Looks happy about that.
Very happy with that. Amoonguss actually goes for a Sludge Bomb, lands in that Tapu Koko, gets the KO right there. So now Brum is going to have control of the terrain. Going to be that grassy terrain as Incineroar uses Flare Blitz. That might be the KO on that Amoonguss if it is crashing into there, and it is. Big damage, gets the KO on Amoonguss, so a very strong Trick Room supporter over on Brum's side has been knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest concern right now for James, even though he is certainly a Pokemon up, is, you know, his Gardevoir is very weak, you know, and the Blaziken's going to be able to start capitalizing on the speed boosts.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe Trick Room won't be able to be set up again. Araquanid is going to take the field here. Decent matchup against Blaziken because of the fact that Water Bubble ability prevents it from being hit very hard by those Fire-type attacks, also prevents burn from that Flare Blitz.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly going to help. You know, it's one of those things with such a good attack that you'd love to catch a burn on it, even if you're not doing much damage. But the ability on Araquanid, certainly keeping it very safe. Of course, Araquanid answers the Blaziken very well, and Incineroar answers the Tapu Bulu very well. You've got to hope that in the Blaziken's case, that Brum's got something on there that's going to help swing this matchup.
Incineroar switches out, going to preserve that Intimidate for later on to come in against both of these physical attackers on Brum's side. Araquanid using this turn to protect. And this could be dangerous if you're Brum, because if you get the KO on that Gardevoir, Incineroar can come in with that fake out pressure again, as Blaziken reveals that it does have access to low kick here. It hits that Gardevoir, quadruple resist, but so heavily damaged that it still gets that KO, as Incineroar now gets to come in.
Yeah, and James gets the confirmation on the Tapu Bulu item right there. The Blaziken, of course, not having any speed boost right now, and Tapu Bulu moving beforehand, so the Choice Scarf certainly confirmed there. That does mean that, you know, for the rest of the game, James is going to be moving second, you know, both his Pokemon going after both of Brum's Pokemon. But with this Intimidate, he's certainly going to be able to mitigate some of that damage. Both of them physical attackers. If he can hold on and retaliate perfectly with the super effective attacks going kind of across the field, then he'll be in a good position. He's just got to make sure he can take those attacks, though.
And of course, with Blaziken, with his Speed Boost Pokemon that actually has access to Rock Slide, you gotta wonder, you know, that has to be a move that this Blaziken knows. You know, if there's a Rock Slide, there's always a chance. We always talk about that, but, you know, that chance of flinch is just so strong.
I mean, Rock Slide is a very effective move right now, you know. We do see a protect from Blaziken starting out, and James looks so stoked about that one.
And Incineroar goes for the fake out in that Tapu Bulu. This opens up. James can do some big damage. A substitute from that Araquanid, so a free substitute on James's Araquanid, allowing it to hide behind that is so big.
Well, that's certainly one way to stop taking big damage from Rock Slide. Getting a substitute in the way means, you know, you're going to need to hit it at least twice, probably 3 times to knock it out, and while you're trying to hit it that many times, the Araquanid's going to be able to weave in a Water-type attack and take the knockout on your Blaziken. All you need to do then is make sure Tapu Bulu doesn't go completely crazy and just, you know, consistently knock you out. It is now, though, locked in with its move.
Here comes a Rock Slide from Mega Blaziken. hits in Incineroar, bring it down to a little bit over 50% as the Arachnid substitute is going to fade here. And how much damage is this Wood Hammer from Tapu Bulu going to do? Needs a critical hit right here to probably get the KO. Here it comes, smashing down in that Arachnid. Big damage, Arachnid hangs on.
Takes it like an absolute champ there. Incineroar.
Oh, there's a flinch.
But Arachnid is able to use Liquidation, connecting with the Blaziken. The biggest threat on the field right now is gone. And James's Incineroar, not scared of these Wood Hammers at all, you know, would be able to just clean up this game.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of players that actually do use Arachnid sometimes opt for a berry on it, especially those substitute variants. So we didn't actually see that Arachnid go for a berry there, so maybe it is carrying a different item. Wow, that was such an intense game one, but I believe James has all the pieces he needs right now to seal the deal with that Incineroar just crashing into that Tapu Bulu.
Yeah, Incineroar just needs to land a Flare Blitz at some point. It is going to get hit by the Wood Hammer, but of course not very effective. Tapu Bulu taking its recoil and Incineroar's Flare Blitz tidying up game one for James Evans.
James Evans now just one win away from becoming the world champion. Brum, his friend across the table, needs to force a game 3 here.
I mean, I think it's very possible. Honestly, the way Brum played that game, bringing a Blaziken with speed boost in the face of a Trick Room team and managing to get it in a position, you know, saving it until the Trick Room had expired. Really, really good play. I think he just needs to do a little bit more with it in this next game to force us into game 3.
Yeah, and again, information to be had. Actually, the Incineroar took recoil damage from that Flare Blitz, actually went down to under 25% health and ate its Figgy Berry in a pinch. So knowledge for Brum to know, but again, these two players are friends. They already know what each other are running, and sometimes I feel like that is the most intense battle when you already know, well, first off, you know your opponent's team, and then you know that your opponent knows your team too. So I think that's going to be a very interesting mind game between these two players.
Yeah, and I honestly think that there was so many turns in that game where James just made like a perfect prediction. You know, even though in turn 1 he threw a Z move, the Gigavolt Havoc, in towards that Bishop, it wasn't really the worst play in the end. The Bishop was still forced into a Protect and playing it safe, allowing Gardevoir to set up the Trick Room. But for the rest of the game, there were so many good turns when he called Protects, when he was able to just capitalize on Brum trying to carve out a little bit of breathing room for himself. Capitalized on those, knocked out the things he needed to knock out at the right time. And getting rid of that Amoonguss was such a big turn for him, I think.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, you know, you want your moves in the same time as that Tapu Koko to be able to redirect attacks. And we saw Bishop take so much damage from that Tapu Koko, getting KO'd by the Gigavolt Havoc through the getting damaged by that Gigavolt Havoc through the Protect, and of course that Volt Switch later on that actually secured the KO. Unfortunately for Brum, he didn't have that Amoonguss in at the right time to be able to deal with that Tapu Koko.
Well, if you're Brum as well and you look down at your team, you know that James went for a Trick Room option. You've got a really good Trick Room pairing of your own there in the Mimikyu and the Snorlax. If you can get the Snorlax in and start capitalizing on it, use the Trick Room that James sets up to your advantage, it could be interesting. It's certainly not something we're going to see to start this game, though.
And here we go now, Game 2 of the Senior Division World Finals. James Evan versus Brum de Jonge. It is going to be Tapu Koko and Gardevoir leads for James. Over on the other side, Blaziken and Bisharp. Gardevoir is going to trace the Defiant ability again. Not that important for that Gardevoir.
It's not the one. I mean, you don't really want to trace either of them. It shouldn't matter as he's going to Mega Evolve immediately. But, you know, could have been interesting maybe earlier in the Swiss rounds. Right now, though, he has to focus on this game. And if you're Brum, I think you have to try and make some kind of change. If you've got a change in the back, you might have to show it because this Bishop is probably forced into playing it very, very safe again.
Yeah, and we know that first turn of Game 1, James was actually just already willing to throw out that Gigavolt Havoc over onto Brum's side of the field. That could get the KO on that Blaziken, that could get the KO on that Bishop, so Brum also has to play a bit defensively here as Blaziken and Gardevoir Mega Evolve from each player's respective sides of the field.
I've seen this opening before. This is what we had in Game 1. Absolutely no shocks in this one.
Oh,
There's
no
not going to be any Protects.
No
and
Protects.
Gigavolt Havoc. James is having a really good time with that one. Looking pretty comfortable that something isn't going to be around in about 10 to 15 seconds.
So much damage being just thrown out onto the field here from this Gigavolt Havoc. Same type attack bonus, also boosted by the electric terrain. Just, this is going to be a KO on that Mega Blaziken, and that is a huge offensive threat over on Brum's side, just removed instantly. How is Bishop going to follow? That is a critical hit. Gravy damage on top right there. Brum's Gardevoir actually no Trick Room, just going for the Hyper Voice. Single target Hyper Voice on that Bishop. Big damage. Bishop hangs on as Bishop uses knockoff hits that Gardevoir, not going to have an item knockoff, but Bisharp actually holds a life orb and gets the KO. So Brum now down to his final 2 Pokemon after just turn 1 here.
Yeah, James is so close to taking that World Championships, and everything went right for him in that turn. He actually managed to knock out both the Bisharp and the Blaziken. This Amoonguss is now playing without the Trick Room. He's not set that up. And this Tapu Bulu has to make a choice right now on what move it wants to play with for the rest of the game. Of course, he's only seen the first 2 on James's team. So if he picks something that isn't super effective against something in the back, then you're in trouble. I mean, purely bringing the Incineroar for James here could put him in such a good position.
Yeah, and the fact that, Tapu Koko can switch out over on James' side means that Brum does not have that terrain advantage at all. James can now function as much as he wants to in that electric terrain, preventing Amoonguss from being able to spore and not allowing Tapu Bulu to go for those powerful grassy terrain boosted wood hammers.
Yeah, Tapu Koko is going to save its terrain for later, and there is the Incineroar. So both these Pokemon don't appreciate that on the field right now at all. Brum really needs to find a way to deal with that with just these 2, and he needs to find it very quickly.
Gardevoir protects itself here, not wanting to possibly get KO'd by a Wood Hammer or even get put to sleep. Tapu Bulu uses Wood Hammer here, hits into that Incineroar slot, but that Intimidate is so big, not much damage dealt at all. What is Amoonguss going to follow up with? It is a Sludge Bomb hitting into that Gardevoir slot, into that Protect, so no damage, no damage done to that Gardevoir. Gardevoir survives yet another turn, but again, Tapu Koko can easily just come right back in.
Yeah, Tapu Koko can come in to make sure there's no Spore, and of course, Tapu Bulu's damage is just going to keep going down. Honestly, between the Tapu Koko and the Incineroar, you can make this Tapu Bulu nigh on useless for the rest of the game. It's going to have its attack reduced by consistent Intimidates, and if it loses its terrain, it's going to be in trouble.
Yep, Tapu Bulu now flinches as Gardevoir uses Hyper Voice, doing some big damage on Tapu Bulu. Over on the other side, Tapu Bulu does hang on as Amoonguss uses Spore here. It is going to put that Incineroar to sleep. And that Incineroar is a very strong Pokemon if you are James, being able to cycle those Intimidates and being able to crash into that Amoonguss with that Flare Blitz.
Yeah, and obviously the Tapu Bulu doesn't appreciate it either, but it's so low, I think any attack right now would probably get the knockout. This Amoonguss is going to have to do a whole lot of work. There is the option, once Gardevoir is gone, to maybe try and buy a little bit of time with Rage Powder, but you've got to get rid of the Gardevoir first, because Hyper Voice doesn't care about that in the slightest.
I think Tapu Bulu actually might just KO itself from that Wood Hammer recoil if it tries to get KO on that Gardevoir from this point.
If it goes for it, I mean, he's stuck in it now. We know it's got the Choice Scarf. Brum is going to be able to have maybe 1 or 2 Wood Hammers land. But apart from that, I mean, he has no real recovery, especially with that grassy terrain leaving the field.
Gardevoir protects itself, not wanting to get KO'd just yet. Tapu Bulu goes for that Wood Hammer, hits in that Tapu Koko slot, still does decent damage to that Tapu Koko. Bulu actually gets KO'd from that point, and now it's just going to be Amoonguss. Amoonguss is not known as the most offensive Pokemon, really just out there for support, just standing out there by itself, facing down 4 Pokemon over on James's side.
Poor brave Amoonguss, you've been so good for so many years, but this is a little bit too much of an ask for you in this one. It's been one of the most popular Pokemon in the video game championships, and now it's going to
Here comes the Thunderbolt. Gardevoir can follow up with a powerful Psyshock here. Hits into that Amoonguss slot. Both players shake hands as Amoonguss gets hit. Amoonguss gets KO'd, and James Evans is your 2018 Pokemon Video Game World Champion in the Seniors Division. Congratulations, James.